Hello, everyone. My name is Winnie, and I'm an artist researcher born and raised in Hong Kong. And I'm now living in Denmark and working in the Department of Digital Design and Information Studies at Aarhus University. So my interest is in the political and cultural implications of technologies. Recurrent topics occur in my work include automated censorship, automated erasure, data politics, invisible infrastructure, and the culture of code practice. And I think it would maybe easier to give you one example of my work to get a sense of what I mean by technologies and how and the medium of my artistic practice. So this is the work called Unerasable Characters 2. The work explores the temporality of voices and political erasure, especially in the context of Chinese censorship. So I collect data from the platform called Weibo Scope, developed by Fu Kingwa from Hong Kong University. The platform gathers texts that are posted by the public on Weibo and got erased. So when you first click on this link, enter the work, it contains what I call active tweets, and each of the text here is representing one tweet, so there are many here. So, but over time, it will disappear one by one according to the actual duration of the message visible time on Weibo. So here as you can see, I'm visualizing the massive scale of text and voices in order to think about the role of social media today. So of course, there's an obvious link around control, freedom, and surveillance, but also thinking about what it means by erasure online, what forms of new transformative potential emerge. So by showing or exploring these censor texts, what does it mean by unerasable characters as put forward in the title? So this is an animated GIF, a fast-forward illustration on how tweets are disappeared online. So next, I want to share something around creating a sense of connection between students and teachers or participants, especially in the current situation of COVID-19 that we all have to live online. And I'm going to share about three tools or intervention. It's not necessarily I just use it during the period of COVID-19. It has been part of my teaching in that sense. So the first one is called GitLab or Git. Maybe some of you already know what it is. It is a software repository and software management systems. In my artistic practice, I do use Git in general to share my code to the public and also to keep track of the versioning of my software. So in general, I support the idea that knowledge is needed to be free, and is one of the ways to increase accessibility and minimize inequality. Especially, it has profound impact on a person's life. And maybe it's also on the other way around is I have been benefited so much from the open source community like P5JS or processing programming language, as well as many artists and designer sketches. So I also want to create this sharing code culture environment rather than log into the proprietary system in a very enclosed way within the classroom setting. So I use Git or GitLab in many ways. The first one is to organize my curriculum. I have like the description of the work. It's just like posting your syllabus online with the learning outcome as well as like weekly schedule, including required and suggested reading and the in-class structure. Right? I also use GitLab to host the programming projects that I need to share in the classroom. For example, like this one for class 8, I think it's around auto-generativity. So this is a lantern end, and GitLab also like hosts, not just only hosts the source code, but also allow the platform to execute the source code to run on the platform as well. And I also use it for weekly notes or lecture notes if you are more familiar with the terms. And I just frame mine as messy notes. I like the messiness around here instead of like one rectangle and then next rectangle in a sequential way. So in that sense, I use the Markdown to structure my weekly messy notes with the activities here, as well as like some pictures, images, links, as well as source code, which is highlighted in a particular way for easier reading. And students can fork a copy and walk through some exercise together easily. And they also, like structure in this way, it enables students to see the scope of the work before the class starts, and allowing to see one item and follow the others, to sort of set the expectation in how long is this activity, what are the other activities coming up. And of course, it's also my personal preference that I find using GitLab and Markdown tied closer with the idea of the course. And from the student side, they also use GitLab to store their README file, just like in the Markdown here, and also the RunMe, the program that can be executed. So students also use GitLab to do peer review online as well, like peer feedback with each other. So that's the first one that I want to introduce to you. And then the second one is called Vocable Code. It is an artwork and also code poetry to explore what it means by feminist software and to think through different ways of querying code, such as pay attention to all the variable namings, the logic, the style, and how you structure in terms of writing code. So the work is set up side by side, showing both the source code and the executed version as critical interfaces. It's not about privileging one or the other. So that's the idea behind, and source code is not necessarily something that is behind, and this is one way of thinking about how we queer code. So in I think last year, with the help of the publisher Double Decker and Anders Vistis, we have launched a live coding version on the web to facilitate learning and thinking with code. I just have to refresh it so that it's back to normal.
Chain, individual, infinite.
Not now,
Dancing
close.
to our own tempo.
So the idea for this side, they are voices by many participants. They help to complete the sentence with the starting words queer is. So like queer is not fixed, not now. Queer is about being you. Queer is fixing the binary. So they also record their voice, and this program is about structuring these voices and showing the statement online. And at the same time, this side, this software is also run on a live coding platform, so students can easily change the code and to able to see the difference immediately as part of the work. So it facilitates learning in that sense, but also give you a sense of like if you have to read aloud the source code, it's also facilitate that as a poetry reading. For example, my favorite line here: if gender equal absolute two, speaking code, queers who is queer, I am making statements. So I usually ask the students to like read aloud, and also in a workshop setting as well. So that's the second one that I want to talk about. So the original idea for Vocable Code was first released in 2017 in a 5 hours workshop setting. to teach really basic programming beyond just the focus on syntax and technical, and to embrace both the formal technicality and discursive cultural meaning of technology. So last week was the first time for me to run online this workshop in 2 hours. So I use this open source software platform called WebTrace, which is developed by Clemens Cosmos, my colleague, and other AU colleagues and many other people. So the idea for this platform is to research on real-time collaborative editing of websites. And I use this platform as a way to think about how I can incorporate performative elements in the workshop setting. So you might imagine WebTrace is something like Etherpad or Google Doc that is allow a lot of people to tune in and then to write together. So similar in that way. But the difference is that WebTrace, you can see on this interface, there are many color block. You can think of it as post-it, right? So I asked the online participants, to create their own statement, like this one, like starting word queer is smelling like freedom. Queer is question, quotes, and quiz. Queer is difference and multiplicity, and many other. Queer is 0 or 1 as a question. So the online participants, they need to think about what is the statement first, and second, how do you want to move around this post-it, and then thirdly, how are you going to queer your voice in order to read aloud like a performance, like a poetry reading collective performance. So I'm going to show you a short video about that. Not now, not close. Not now, not close. Not now, not close.
Not 0 or 1. More than it.
Possibility of another.
Not close.
Listen.
Another.
Not
Another.
now, not close.
Another.
Difference.
Not close.
Another.
Question, loud and quick.
Another.
Question,
Not
loud
now,
and quick.
not close.
0 or 1.
Not now,
Another.
not close. So you kind of get the idea of how I use WebTrace in terms of encouraging participation and with this performative elements in order to think through how might we work together online beyond just typing and listening, and to also move beyond or I would say like how to involve more of our physical bodies, like voices, like moving your mouth, your hands, as well as visual composition. So I think it worked. It's really my first time. It's experimental, and I'm happy with how it turns out. I find it's super poetic in that sense. So these are the three work or intervention that I have done in relation to the connections between the students or participants and teachers. So the last bit is around the imagining tools, right? I'm not sure I can separate art practice and my own use of technologies and platforms. So of course, in an institutional setting, we encounter different limitations, such as the ready-made teaching platform, or even the video meeting tool like Zoom, right? But by deviating from the usual institutional practice, it gives us different kinds of freedom to rethink the possibilities of teaching otherwise, or perhaps enable different kinds of critical discussion, and also encourage an independent learning and reflections on things like why you choose A over B, or why I choose Markdown, for example, over PowerPoint, right? And what's the issues with existing infrastructure. So one of the things that I'm doing is, for example, requesting a virtual server space from the institution and install other open source tools like Big Blue Button, and referring and also like reframing it as having different options for students to try out And second is to create the infrastructure beyond just proprietary tools, which is benefit both teaching and learning and create the discussion around this. And what I want to see is that there are different options that people can access to. So that's pretty much of my sharing, and I hope I'm looking forward to the coming live events. Thank you for all listening.